Have you ever found yourself in a place where nobody else looked quite like you? Maybe it was your race, your gender, socioeconomic status, political stance, or any part of your identity that the majority just doesn't share. In situations like these, we may be surrounded by others, but it's hard not to feel alone. And this isolation can be really challenging. When we are a minority, we often find that the majority holds certain assumptions, stereotypes, that lead them to treat, see, and judge us differently. The presence of these stereotypes leads to stereotype threat, a psychological threat that causes us to worry that our actions will be seen negatively, based on stereotypes about groups to which we belong. And it turns out, stereotype threat can have critical impact on academic performance, career paths, even our cognitive ability to function. So the question is, how do we learn to break free from these stereotypes? In this episode of To The Max, we have the incredible opportunity to speak to someone who's done just that and is helping others do the same. This is To The Max, advice from today's experts to tomorrow's leaders.
Always seek help, seek guidance, seek direction, and just don't hesitate to ask people for help, to reach out for them, to understand where can I find more of what I need.
This is Kevin Jarbo, a graduate of Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh. Dr. Jarbo is now an assistant professor in the Social and Decision Sciences Department at CMU, where he researches how stereotypes impact student experiences in academic settings. He is also a member of CMU's DEI Strategic Planning Committee and co-director of the Data-Driven Diversity Lab, where researchers use psychology and behavioral economics to understand how students of all backgrounds can achieve belonging and success. Today, Dr. Jarbo will share his research and story, from growing up as a first-generation Black and Asian American to spearheading equity at one of the most prestigious universities in the nation. Along the way, he will teach us how all young people can learn to empower themselves, seek supportive mentors, build inclusive communities, and find success in the face of challenge. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about how maybe your personal challenges informed your research.
The kinds of challenges I've had in academia came long before college. Teachers who, as early as like kindergarten and first grade, who would say things like, it didn't matter how smart I was because I'm Black. As a kid, you don't think too deeply about those things or like know what it means, but then we still remember these experiences and then they kind of carry forward with us like on a day-to-day basis. So as soon as one teacher said that to me, I thought all my teachers would think that about me. I thought that other students would think that about me. I was always driven to perform well in school and behave well and kind of like prove that I could do well and be and achieve, but still like it just, that idea, that thought, that feeling lingered that like, man, just because I'm Black and I'm not as smart as I actually am, or that it wasn't me who actually did that work. I'm finding now even still like that intersects with like another part of my identity too, being like my mom's Filipino, my dad's Liberian. So like I'm a first generation American. And so they didn't have experiences with the American educational system in the way that I did either. So it was very difficult for them to help me navigate. But I was still raised as a Black man in America. And a lot of that carried on into my academic career. Like I said, being the only Black man in a class, when I would look around, there's like 300 or 400 people in a giant lecture room, nobody wanting to sit with me or nobody wanting to be in my study groups. That was really hard. That has really been a motivating piece of my research, working with students now and seeing the ways that they're coming up against similar challenges as I had, and what's happening to them psychologically, what's happening to them in terms of their academic performance and eventual success. Some of these things that work against us, these like social and environmental factors, are things that I want to change about the college experience so that it's more positive for everybody.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And having the ability through research to kind of really look at our own experiences, I think is really, really important. And part of the reason why your research is so cool, even as a girl who's really interested in STEM, like myself, I understand I have many privileges, but also this other side as a female in mostly male dominated space. So just having these kinds of experiences and being able to make sense of them, I think through research and know how to overcome like the challenges that society historically has placed on us, I think is really important. So thank you. In a place like high school or college or like in a classroom, I guess from your perspective, what would be an effective way for teachers and students to kind of create a safe environment where the stereotype threat is limited or, if possible, just non-existent?
Yeah, so there's a couple different interventions that we do because it's like really challenging to stop stereotype threat. The thing is, a lot of these negative stereotypes are just things we kind of have been like socialized to believe, some of these ideas that we kind of incorporate without really trying. One of the most widely used kinds of interventions is called a self-affirmation intervention. It's about having people reflect on things that are important to them, like values, like family or love or hard work. These are kinds of values that people have. And then talking about why those values are important to them. And what that does is when someone thinks about their values, it like kind of makes them think like bigger about themselves, like things that are beyond just a particular situation that they might be in where they might be experiencing threat. So if you're in a math class and you just or you're having a hard time with an exam or an assignment, or you just failed an exam or assignment, right, that can induce stereotype threat. But your identity as a math person maybe is real small compared to like you as your entire being, because like you're not just a math person, but like maybe you also like English and history and geography, or you want to get into medicine, or you like playing sports, or you like playing music, or you like reading or writing, like. And so with self-affirmation, it kind of reminds people that they're like bigger than this one piece, and that actually helps people be buffered from sort of the stressful effects of stereotype threat. Another intervention that's been starting to come up more is just teaching people what stereotype threat is. One thing that happens with stereotype threat, it makes you feel anxious. And what that can do is lead to you coming up with a bunch of like negative thoughts that you can't really stop about the situation that you're in. For instance, like you were saying, like being a woman and trying to be in STEM fields, there's a lot of like negative stereotypes about women in those particular domains or their ability in it. But if you sit here and say like, well, like I'm a woman and I'm in STEM, like, am I not gonna do well? Or anytime I do try to do well, like I know I'm gonna do bad. Like you don't want to start internalizing those things, because then it undermines your performance in that domain, and then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, right, where you're like worried about doing bad so much that you can't do the task well, and then you end up doing bad. But when you teach people that you might be feeling anxious, right, but that's not because you're bad at this thing, it's because there's some social and environmental cues that might be related to a negative stereotype or activating a negative stereotype for you. It allows them to think about the situation a little bit differently. And so you start shifting people's way of thinking. And maybe the last piece that is like more like, what can everybody do? There's more recent research now. I really like some work by Dr. Mary Murphy at Indiana University, who has worked a lot on identity safe cues in environments, right? So very often in academic spaces, and you'll probably see this in college, and it's been on the news all over the place as of late, but you know, when you walk down certain hallways and it's just like, here's all of the former university presidents, and they're just like all old white men, or you enter into classrooms and you're like the only woman or the only student of color in there, right? Or the only person with some piece of your identity that's like very salient, because now you're like, oh no, like I'm underrepresented, or I'm the only one in this space. That can start activating these feelings of identity threat. Improving representation in terms of like people and content and the way that you teach things starts to create a more identity safe environment for a lot of different people, because once people can see themselves represented in those spaces, they start to feel like, oh, like I have a role model here, or there's other people like me who are also doing this thing. And it takes a lot of that psychological burden off of people who are experiencing that.
Just to connect this a little bit with the work that you're doing in DEI, you talk a lot about the importance of trust and emotional support in education, from other people, from your teachers and from your peers.
And I was wondering if you could talk a bit about how these two concepts might help students and teachers alike create safe learning communities.
Yeah, so this is more of an idea that like I'm starting to develop like more from like a theoretical standpoint. And some research that I have been recently doing is more qualitative. So I've actually been working with a group in our school's Human and Computer Interaction Institute. And in particular, like we're really curious about like how students overcome challenges in learning math. We interviewed groups of students and just talked about like, hey, what were the kinds of experiences that you had that allowed you to be successful in math after experiencing some sort of challenges or setbacks? And a lot of the students, like, at least like 80% of them said teachers were the ones who really kind of made the difference, and not just like in class, but this like out of class kind of engagement. So helping them like get, study for the SATs, or, staying a little bit late after school. Or in some cases, when the teacher saw that a student was struggling to achieve a particular goal, the teacher like went to them and said like, hey, like, I want to help you with this. And they did it in a way that was, inviting and made the student feel like they could trust them. Experiences that students said were negative, and there were a lot more, unfortunately, than positive ones. Teachers dismissed the questions that they had or said things like, I don't think I can teach you the things that you should already know. And that really started making students feel like really bad and incapable and like unhelpable. So what we found was like positive interactions is where I really wanted to focus on. I was like, all right, what are the kind of characteristics of those engagements? Like when students and teachers interact, what's happening that makes the student feel like positive? What does it mean to trust somebody when you need help? So one, if you're seeking help from somebody, you need to be able to judge that that person is like capable of helping you. So in the case of a teacher, of course, like they're your teacher, they're teaching the class, they should be able to help you. It's what they do and it's like their job, right? So that should be a given. Another thing is that like getting help from that person should guarantee that you can achieve your goal. When we ask somebody for help who's capable of helping us, and they do help us, we get a little bit closer to the goal we want to achieve. Unless they're trying to sabotage us, like, we usually get closer to our goal. But a third thing that's really important is being able to judge whether or not that person is willing to help you. And that's a kind of the most social aspect of this. Like, I need help. That person can help me. If they do help me, I'm going to reach my goal. But it's like, do they want to help me? And there's like a lot of research about the more that students engage with faculty in and out of class, the better their academic performance is, the more likely they are to have higher academic achievement. So students that are super involved and especially have good relationships with faculty members, they do better, right? And there's ways that I think that we should try to focus on how we can improve those relationships through building trust.
And I guess my last question would be, what advice would you have for students, like the students watching this right now, who don't see a lot of people who look like them in the fields that they're interested in?
Always seek help, seek guidance, seek direction, and just don't hesitate to ask people for help, to reach out for them, to understand where can I find more of what I need. Someone can at least point you in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Professor Jarbo. I think we can learn so much about like what you're saying about mentorship, like even self-empowerment and just building communities that all people can feel like they're a part of.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks so much for the wonderful questions and just great chatting with you in general, Max.
Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it and discovered something you can apply in your own life. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more, the full interview is linked in the description below. See y'all next time!